Afternoon to everybody in the Bronx, all our friends and neighbors, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Bronx Bronx Borough President Education Forum. And in case you don't know, my name is Gary Axelbank. I host Bronx Talk and the Bronx Buzz on BronxNet Television. And I was asked by a group of parents to run in and moderate this very important forum. And it is my pleasure to do so. We will tell you right up front that the event is organized by the Parent Leaders Advocacy Group in collaboration with CECs 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And that means our entire borough of the Bronx. Also by the New Settlement Parent Action Committee, the African Democratic Club, STEMDUP Institute, and BronxNet Television. Now, we want to thank these parent leaders for really putting it together, and of course for their service to our children and our communities. So let's just go through it, and maybe each of them will say hello. Representing the Community Education Councils, not commonly known as the CECs. We'll start at CEC 7. The president is Hakeem Yamadi.
Join the meeting.
And Farah Despains, the CEC 8 president and lead coordinator of the Bronx BXPLAG Parent Candidate Forums. And I hope I pronounce it right, Aidi Zainos, the CEC 9 president. Thank you, Ms. Zainos, for joining us. Maria Villalobos, the CEC 10 vice president. Thank you for joining us.
Join the meeting.
Cheryl Smith, CEC 11 president. Thank you for joining us. Ilka Rios, the CEC 12 president. Thank you for joining us. Amy Tsai, who will double as our timekeeper this evening. We thank her. She is the representing District 75. Benga Suber, who is handling a lot of the technology for this program, representing the African Democratic Club. We also say welcome to Griselle Cardona, representing the New Settlement Parent Action Committee. Sheikh Musa Drama represents STEMDUP and the STEMDUP Institute. And thank you very much, Sheikh, for joining us. And also, last but not least, the co-founder of the Bronx Parent Leaders Advocacy Group. It is Tom Shepard. Mr. Shepard, nice to have you with us. And we understand you want to say a couple of words to welcome everybody to tonight's program.
Thanks, Gary. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Shepard. First, I am a dad to 6 children, 3 of whom currently attend public schools in the Bronx. I am also a community organizer, co-founder of the Bronx Parent Leaders Advocacy Group, the first CEC president's member on the New York City Panel for Educational Policy, and a steering committee member of the New Settlement Parent Action Committee. The Bronx Parent Leaders Advocacy Group is an alliance of Bronx parent leaders throughout the Bronx, as Gary said, including all 6 Bronx Community Education Councils representing community school districts 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We are a community of Bronx parents working together to build a better Bronx community. Our shared mission is to improve the educational experiences for Bronx students by building strong relationships between families, schools, and community organizations that serve them. As a diverse Bronx community, we share the common belief that a quality public school education for our children is a critical part of their success as adults. Today, in collaboration with the New Settlement Parent Action Committee, the African Democratic Club, STEMDUP Institute, and BronxNet, we are proud to present this first ever Bronx Borough President Candidates Forum on Education, organized by Bronx parent leaders. We invited this year's candidates to come and share with us their vision and plans for education if elected Bronx Borough President. On behalf of the Bronx Parent Leaders Advocacy Group and all of our partners, I would like to welcome our candidates and thank you all for joining us. Our team developed a series of questions that will be presented by this evening's moderator and collaborative partner, the host of Bronx Talk and Bronx Buzz on BronxNet TV, Mr. Gary Axelbank. Thank you, Gary, for working with us to make this forum possible. And we look forward to working with you in BronxNet to help us build that better Bronx community I just spoke of. That said, I turn it over to you.
Tom Shepard and all of the parent leaders, thank you all so much again for your service and for putting together this very important forum. So tonight it's about education. And of course, education of Bronx children is right at the top of everybody's concern and everybody's list. But it's also about educating the general public about who the candidates are who are running for Bronx Borough President. And I will tell you quite honestly, it's also about educating the candidates so that they know a little bit more about Bronx parents. And one thing I can tell you from having worked with these people to set up the forum we did last week and the one we've done for this evening, these are people who are incredibly dedicated to their children, to their communities, to their schools. And also, I'm going to tell you straight up, and I think you understand it because all of the candidates here know a lot about the Bronx. They're frustrated. They think that they've been looked over in many ways by the Department of Education and by other systems that somehow has left their children behind. So that's the way I'm going to introduce this program. All of the questions have been submitted by the groups who organized the forum. Let's introduce the candidates. So let's start out. We're going to do them always in alphabetical order. So let's start with the council member from the 14th Council District and say welcome to Council Member Fernando Cabrera. Nice to have you with us, sir. The assembly member from the state's 80th Assembly District is Natalia Fernandez. Assembly Member Fernandez, nice to have you with us. The council member from the 16th Council District in the Bronx, it is Council Member Vanessa Gibson. Nice to have you with us. We understand that Victor Gutierrez will be joining us a little later, so we will welcome him at that time. A retired NYPD lieutenant and Gulf War veteran. Nice to see Sammy Ravello. Mr. Ravello, nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
And the state senator from the 32nd Senatorial District is Louis Sepulveda. Senator Sepulveda, nice to have you with us, sir.
Thank you.
Candidates will rotate the order through the program. As I said, we'll start off alphabetically, but then we'll, in a very fair way, rotate the order. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question, and you receive audio warnings from me at 30 and 15 seconds. And then at the end, when time is up, I'll just say time is up. At the end of the program, you will have an opportunity to offer closing statements. And as I mentioned, all questions used in tonight's program have been submitted by those parent leaders. So it's a relatively simple format. We're going to get right to it. Let's start off with you, Councilmember Cabrera. Nice to have you with us. Because of the pandemic, we are entering a new era in our schools as regards counseling, enrichment support, and all of the systems, technological systems as well. As the pandemic continues to change imperatives, what is your vision for how our schools can use the influence of the Borough President's office to build those grassroots initiatives and include community groups who can help address many of these changing dynamics?
Thank you so much, Gary, and thank you for having us here tonight. I know we only have minutes, so let me get to the point. As someone who had children go through elementary, middle school, and high school right here in the Bronx, this is an issue that is very dear to my heart. Look, the Borough President has capital funding, and is someone who brought over $170 million to his district during the last 11 years. This is something I'm very, very committed to, using that capital money to build the infrastructure that I'm sure we're going to talk about later on. The appointments that the Borough President makes are crucial to have a voice in the Educational Council.
15.
The relationships that are forged with the administration to bring those resources here in the Bronx that are so crucial. And I'm looking forward to becoming the Educational Borough President.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Assembly Member Fernandez, of course, the same question for you.
The question was, how can we empower our schools? I'm
How can
sorry.
we empower our parents to really be partners and equal partners and legitimate partners in the development of our schools as they try to rebound?
Thank you. Well, we have great parents in our school systems, and this is the biggest and most complex school system in the state. And we're very grateful to have parents that participate and are in the PTAs to have these conversations amongst themselves and to share with our school administrators. But these conversations need to be heard more clearly. And as Borough President, I will work with our PTAs, with our school administrators, principals, and everyone involved so they can actually hear the concerns directly by our parents and take that into consideration as we consider and look towards the needed changes that our schools need. But furthermore, our communities are all different and they all have various organizations, some that should be seen and utilized across the borough, but building those bridges between what the community is doing and to what is happening in our schools is something that I intend to do as Borough President as well. So any other resources that we are talking about, but they may not realize that is right in our community, we get to realize that and we get to take advantage of it and bring our students and parents into the resources that are here.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you, Gary. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Bronx parents, leaders, advocates, and everyone for this important forum today. I think the new normal for our schools and parents means more engagement with our parent leaders. I will be working with our PEP, CEC, and PTA leaders. We need to have every school as a community school. We need to have school-based health centers, trauma-informed care, holistic services, wraparound services, universal in-classroom breakfast and free lunch, healing centers, restorative justice programs, and every school should have an after-school program, as well as a full-time guidance counselor, school nurse, and social worker. We have to invest in our schools with critical programs and resources for our students and their families.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Ravello. Mr. Ravello? Is his...
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Go ahead.
Quickly, I am a COVID survivor, and I want to thank Vanessa Gibson and Councilman Cabrera for their well wishes. I really appreciate it. The pandemic has changed the way we've done business in schools. We learned that it is imperative that elementary children have an in-person interaction. We've learned that Wi-Fi is not just a utility. It's not a luxury. Or it's not a luxury, it's actually a utility. We've learned that we have a lot of accommodations that we need to make all along for our children. We'll create a task force dedicated to education in the Bronx. We'll reach out to the community groups such as this group to see what their school needs are. My vision is that schools are being helped by local community groups and organizations in the borough. Through these businesses and nonprofits, we're gonna build our schools up. We want Bronx schools to be self-sustainable and by Bronx support. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Sepulveda.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for the question. And I want to thank everyone who's participating today, and a special shout out to Farah Despain, who's been such a great member of this community, especially with issues of education. So thank you, Farah, for the great work that you do. When we talk about education and how we can empower parents in using our office, I will be the first borough president to set up the office of the borough president's Department of Education. I know the importance of education. I come from a poor family. I was able to get a college degree, a law degree from Hofstra University, and I can see what education does. But there's so many things that we have to do in this county to improve parental involvement. We have the CECs. We have the parent-teachers associations. There are things in place already. But we're not going to get kind of involved unless we deal with the complexities of our educational problems. That has to do with segregation. And every time there's a movement to desegregate, you get resistance from certain groups. And the issue of poverty. You know, our children are 2.5 times more likely to be in poverty than students in more affluent neighborhoods. And unless we tackle all those issues combinedly, we're not going to make the progress that we should make, which is 80% graduation rate in 5 years.
Senator, thank you very much. Let's go to question 2. The first respondent will be Assemblymember Fernandez. Let's talk about language and language access. There has been a real problem of inclusion in Bronx schools. Parents of differing language and or cultural barriers have had difficulty communicating with the school system, and they become disengaged, and ultimately, of course, their children suffer. How can you help address this and bring additional resources into the schools to supplement the funding that comes out of the state and city?
Well, I'm proud to say that this year in the state, we secured an extra $1.3 billion for our school system and established a plan that will fulfill that full funding that we've been fighting for, the fiscal aid, within a matter of 3 years. So thinking about what that money could be used for now is really important. And when it comes to language access, we live in the Bronx. This is such a diverse borough. We have diverse communities, and within communities, we know there are prominent languages. So it's very obvious to think that we need school officials, teachers, the social workers, everyone involved that can speak these languages, and the connection within the school agency that can also have these languages. And any paperwork available in that language. But I really believe that, especially for our younger students that may only speak a certain language, that we have 2 teachers per classroom. So hiring teachers is going to be something that we need, because the co-partnership is something that helps students that are learning English, those that don't know English, and those that can communicate in both languages.
Thank you very much. And so Councilmember Gibson, it's up to you, the same question.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm very proud to work with my colleagues in the City Council. We have an adult literacy initiative that gives our community-based organizations more money to provide more services for many of our students. We have a local law that provides all city publications are in the top 6 languages. So I think we need to make sure that that translates into our schools. We have to have a robust recruitment of bilingual teachers in our schools to make sure that they speak the language. We are a beautiful, diverse community and borough, and we have to make sure that our teachers reflect that. We have to have a diverse array of services in our schools and provide literacy programs for all of our students, as well as our parents, because we know parents are learning at the same time as their children, and we have to make those programs available.
Thank you. Let's go to Mr. Ravello. Same question about language access, sir.
Yes, well, I'm an example. I actually came here when I was 16 years old from the Dominican Republic, and I didn't know any English. So I know exactly what parents are going to go through when they bring their kids. We have such a diverse population in the Bronx. We have Garifunas. We have people from Albania. We have such a rich culture, and it has to reflect in our schools. Assemblywoman, Fernandez said that they provided us with the money now. Let's actually put the money where it's to go. So we need to hire more translators and more people that can help our kids reach that gap when it comes to language.
Thank you. Senator Sepulveda.
Well, New York City Department of Education has reported about 150,000 students that are enrolled in ELL classes. So it's clear that to be able to significantly change the trajectory of these students and improve their ability to get educated, it has to come from funding. And I've been working on that, not just this budget, where I'm proud to say we allocated about $1.3 billion, but for the last almost 10 years that I've been a legislator, that I've worked on the budget, I've pushed to get more funding for our ELL students. I have visited almost every single school in my district.
30 seconds.
And through that, I've met with parents who have talked to us about the difficulties they have in obtaining ELL services for their children. So while we spend a lot of money on these programs, we have to have more effective teachers, certainly give more funding so we can hire more teachers that are bilingual so that we can have an impact on the lives of our students.
Thank you. The final respondent to this question is Councilmember Cabrera, sir.
Thank you, Gary. Just like Sammy mentioned, I also, I was born in the Bronx, but when I was 4, I went to, my parents moved us to Puerto Rico. So when I came back to the main line, I experienced firsthand those challenges of being an ESL student. Part of the problem that we have often is that parents getting the information late because of this lack of translation services. I think that every school should have a school team who speak the language of the people that they're serving. I was a school counselor. I was a bilingual school counselor right here in Walton High School. And I've seen firsthand how we need to have translation and PTA meetings, celebrate a culture of diversity of language. So often speaking another language in our country is looked down upon. And so we need more than ever to have teachers that could speak both languages, helping our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of language, I did not mention, maybe it was mentioned earlier, but there are translations of this program available for people who are watching us live on Saturday, the 24th, between 4 and 6 p.m. Those are in the chat bar, and if you just click those links, you'll be able to get translations of this evening's program. And secondly, I just want to mention before we move on, let's just have all the candidates remember that the Borough President's office is rather unique because it doesn't have legislative power. It doesn't have the ability to vote in either the city hall or in the state or even federal legislature. So it'd be great to have each of the candidates address how a borough president handles the response to some of these things. I think as we're talking about education, educating our community about the position of a borough president, I think is very, very important, and certainly in this forum might serve very well. Let's go to the next question, and the first respondent will be Councilmember Gibson. Councilmember, the pandemic has shed light on a digital divide that has had a disproportionately negative impact on students and families in the borough of the Bronx. Many have been at a decided disadvantage when it comes to remote learning. How can we ensure that each school is technology rich and each child has a device and broadband access so there is equitability in educational opportunity?
Thank you. Great question. The digital divide is real for so many of our families in the Bronx, and particularly families in temporary housing and students of color, our D75 students, and students with IEPs. And I represent many of them in school districts 9, 8, and 12. In my last budget, I allocated 27 different schools Reso A funds for technology so they can buy new laptops, iPads, and Chrome notebooks. We have renovated computer labs at many of our schools, partnering with the Office of the Bronx Borough President, because we realize that we have to have the latest technology. But we also realize we have to work with these private companies that provide internet access and have often discriminated against many of our families. It's unacceptable. So as Borough President, we will work with these companies on public-private partnerships. We will work with organizations like the Bronx Impact so they can provide internet connectivity. And we will make sure that our computer labs at all of our schools are upgraded and they have the latest technology through our Reso A funds that we're able to provide as Borough President.
Councilmember, thank you very much. Mr. Ravello, same question about the digital divide for our students. I think you need to unmute yourself, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay,
we
thank
can.
you. Thank you. I'm sorry. The digital and technological divide is not a new phenomenon facing our school-age children, especially the children of color and children experiencing poverty. 70% of our children in the Bronx are unable to complete their homework due to limited internet access. This divide is unacceptable. So as Bronx Borough President, we have money. Now let's actually put it into our schools, and now let's put it into our children. That's a small expenditure that we can make in order for our children to reach that gap, close that gap, if you will. So that's one of the things that I would be advocating with our state and local partners is to get more internet access to our population.
Thank you. Senator Sepulveda.
Gary, I'm going to say it time and again. The two biggest issues we have in our New York City public school system is segregation and poverty. And unless we resolve those issues, a lot of what we're trying to accomplish here will not be as effective as it should be. The Office of the Comptroller indicated in a report that internet inequality highlights a lot of the systemic problems that we have for the poor in New York City. So we need to increase subsidies to facilitate high-speed access internet for our poor families. And I am a big proponent of a law that is pushing for that very goal. And we also have to be proponents of getting the most up-to-date hardware for our children to work in our schools. It is unforgivable and something that just boils my blood. When you go to more affluent neighborhoods, you don't have this digital divide that you have in our poor communities. Unfortunately, we as leaders have failed this county because we have not been able to move the metrics that are important. We're last on the most important ones and first on the most deleterious ones. And we have to be able to increase our economy. We have to get more jobs, and we have to change our segregated systems in our school, which are more segregated than our churches on Sunday. We have to fix these problems. If not, we're not going to be able to accomplish what we want.
Councilmember Cabrera.
Thank you, Gary. Let me get to the heart of the issue here, which is we have a grand opportunity. We know the problem. How do we solve this problem? We have a grand opportunity coming up. Every 10 years, we negotiate with the companies that are giving us broadband services. That's the time where we have to demand to have affordable prices for our families. And this is going to be able to allow our young people, our students to have that level of access. The other thing, we got to get creative. Why not? There's another group that is lacking as well. Our seniors. Why not use senior centers so we can have the seniors working with young people as well? Our public libraries as well to amplify the level of service accessibility to the internet. And also, I just want to let everybody know the governor just signed a $15 a month broadband deal. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's give the final word on this to Assembly Member Fernandez.
Thank you. Well, to kind of use same words, the digital divide is real and the gap is wide. The divide is wide. But coming off of what Councilman Cabrera said, yes, this year, the state assembly bill the governor signed that will give access to poor families for $15 a month of internet. But we can do so much more. And in our public spaces, reworking the contracts with our broadband providers to make sure that they are expanding Wi-Fi as far as possible, starting from our schools, starting from our main buildings and state buildings to get it into our community. But one thing I would look to doing is to make sure that every child has the device that they need, because we've seen it now. And I know we've all worked with our constituencies to try to streamline getting those devices in our kids' hands. But in the classroom, we need to have those devices. In libraries, they need to have the devices. So after school, students can still have connection to technology and continue their education. But it's access to Wi-Fi, it's laptops in our laps, and making sure that we are connected in every single way.
Thank you very much. Let's move to the next question. And the first respondent will be you, Mr. Ravello. Unfortunately, Bronx students and their families have been disproportionately affected by trauma from so many sources, and of course, even more so during the pandemic. Bronx children and their families have had their general well-being and mental stability definitively challenged, and in some cases, even impaired. How can all Bronx schools develop healing spaces and resources for all children and support also for their families, especially in historically underserved neighborhoods where trauma was often pervasive even before the pandemic? So that's for you, Mr. Ravello.
Unmute myself. You're so right. I spent 25 years in the police department, and my biggest things was responding to a school, where a kid was hit by, some mental health issues. We need to hire more counselors and people that can deal with this. We need to equip our teachers in order to help identify when a kid is in need, and perhaps have every child age appropriate take mandated courses where we can help them identify if there is an issue with them, and provide them with the opportunities to go somewhere to get help. And also, the parents, inform the parents and educate the parents, perhaps give them an opportunity to come to the school and seek help if they need that.
Thank you. Senator Sepulveda?
Yes, Gary. So, I've spoken since I've been elected official about the mental illness and trauma, because I've spoken time and again about my experience with my mother when I was 11 years old, took her own life because she suffered from mental illness. And so I have a keen understanding of what happens to families that suffer through this. Amongst Latinas 11 to 19 years old, number 2 killer is suicide. Amongst young African-American boys, number 2 killer is suicide. I'm talking as early as 8 years old. And so it's a question of providing the necessary resources so we can have therapists, multi-language therapists at our schools that can be able to provide trauma, to have a team, an immediate impact team to go into when we see that there's an issue with trauma with our students, to be able to assist them, to provide services, because suicide should not be something that young children should be dealing with, or mental illness. And if they are, we need to provide all the resources necessary for them to be able to survive and thrive.
Councilmember Cabrera, let's talk about supporting the many challenges our children and families face.
Thank you, Gary. As a licensed mental health counselor, as a substance abuse specialist in school, and also having worked as a school counselor, I have more experience than any other candidate here working literally inside our Bronx school. Look, there's 2 things that we need to do. One, as a matter of fact, I have a wrestle calling upon the state mandating that we have school counselors in elementary school and middle school. There is no such law. We only have one law. It's a federal law that JFK passed in signed into law in 1963 to have high school counselor. The second thing that we need, we already have what works, and that is community school. This is something I've been saying in every forum. We need community schools. They're the ones who have the wraparound services. It's the most effective school model that we have right here in the city of New York, with awesome results in dealing with the mental health issues, medical issues, and educational issues our students are facing. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Assemblymember Fernandez.
Thank you, Gary. This is a critical issue, and one that we should have been thinking about. And I have been saying it for some time, that this is an issue that we must be prepared for once our kids fully get back into school, because the transition going out of school now back into school, and at times back and forth, certainly has traumatized many. And for whatever personal situation they've experienced, it will linger. So having psychologists, social workers in our schools, and yes, expanding community school health centers is something that can certainly address this, because in some of these health centers, they do have therapists, they do have social workers there. And that's something that I've helped to fund in the State Assembly, knowing that this is a priority. And in this year, my request for additional services to Astor services that do help parents and students deal with mental needs, and also expanding the ability to programs like Life is Precious, a program that I volunteered at as a counselor for at-risk Latinas, because knowing it's the #1 cause for death in Latinas, it's something that we need to help bring that opportunity further to our kids and support them where they need.
Councilmember Gibson, you get the final word on this question.
Thank you, Gary. So many of our students and families have been traumatized by COVID-19, and we really have to have a robust and comprehensive program that focuses on healing-centered schools that address social emotional learning, restorative justice programs, and mental health services. I believe every school should be a community learning school with a wealth of services, including school-based health centers that provide medical help, as well as healthcare, dental, and vision services, and holistic services and wraparound care, suicide prevention, as well as family support services. We have to have our counselors and school nurses and clinicians work with students and their families, because everyone has been traumatized together. And what I also want to see are more public-private partnerships and working with many of our local CBOs and focusing on our beacons and our cornerstones. They are also a part of the learning growth for our students as well. So I think if we have these partnerships and we recognize that we have a lot more in common than we do that divides us, we will see a lot of benefit.
The next question, the first respondent will be you, Senator Sepulveda. As diverse as the Bronx is, remarkably, our communities are segregated by race, gender, and ethnicity, something you addressed actually earlier in this program. In 2019, the Department of Education adopted a culturally responsive, sustaining education framework, but we still have segregated schools. What is your vision for practical, short, and long-term application of this framework with students, families, communities, and schools? And how do we support those school initiatives in the community that can undoubtedly help with integrating not only our schools, but Bronx communities?
The data clearly establishes that an integrated, diverse school system is much more productive for our students. Unfortunately, New York City, which fancies itself a liberal, progressive city, has had one of the most segregated, racist educational systems in history. Now, there have been improvements. However, if you can see, going back to desegregation in 1964, and with the passage of Heck Calandra in 1971, anytime there was a movement to segregate or to desegregate, you've gotten resistance from wealthier communities, from certain communities. And in order for us to have a better school system, we have to be able to segregate. We have to be able to bring kids from different communities, from here to other communities that are there where the student scores are better, to integrate so that they can work together and get the benefit of some of the wealthier schools that you see, but also bring in more funding into our schools. So these children that come from affluent neighborhoods can come here and experience what we experience. So you really have to take care of our issue with segregation. We have to work to segregate our schools. We've tried that. The mayor has tried that, but you always get a resistance. And again, until we resolve that, we're not going to reach the kind of equity that we need to reach in our city of New York.
Thank you. Councilmember Cabrera.
Thank you so much. I agree with the senator. This is structural. This is often what we have seen that is intentional. The other piece here that we have to acknowledge, not all schools are treated equal. And until all our schools get the proper resources that they need, this is going to continue to be a problem. The second part of the question, I think that is imperative that we answer, is that how do we support those school initiatives in the community that could help integrate it not only our schools, but our Bronx community. We need to empower our nonprofits. They're specialized and trained. They have the capacity and competency to be able to do this type of work. That often, sometimes, even school counselors, social workers, psychologists may not have to be able to have this level of interaction with our students.
Thank you very much. I think we need somebody to mute their microphone there. There we go. Let's go to Assembly Member Fernandez.
Thank you. Well, when it comes to segregation in our schools, it is something that has been intentional, because looking at the history of redlining and how many communities were stuck in a certain place, it's reflective in our schools. And we do need to empower and better our schools, every single one of them. There shouldn't be a bad school in a community versus a good school across town. We should be building new schools that are welcoming, that give that new environment, that new need of quality education, of a sustainable building, and a welcoming building that every student should have an opportunity to attend to. There is an issue in New York City about district lines and how certain students can only go to a school within districts. I do think we should consider lifting those lines and allowing students to go to schools wherever, because yes, integrated classrooms help them grow up with perspectives of the diversity of the world. But we need to certainly build new schools, improve our schools where they're lacking, and make sure that every school is a good school.
Thank you. Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you. Very important topic, Gary, when you talk about culturally responsive and integrating a framework in our schools. I think we have to obviously short-term focus on additional training for our educators and support for many of our families. I also look at long-term options in terms of the integration of more of our school-based programs, as well as working with our anti-gun violence organizations. We have to have integrated models working with different diverse groups coming together in a way where we talk about the issues, right? We're coming off a racist administration of a president that incited violence and divisiveness. I also think we have to look at very tailored programs for many of our foster youth and our LGBTQ students, our TGNC and BIPOC communities. We have to make sure that there are programs that are critically important for their needs, because a lot of times these are vulnerable students, they need additional help, and the support mechanisms have to be in place when you talk about culturally responsive training in our curriculum.
Thank you. Mr. Ravello, you get the final word on this particular question.
Yeah, I'm going to be quick on this issue. I, as a former military war veteran, I know the importance of everybody working within a unit, regardless of race, color, ethnic background. And, it starts with that. Boot camp taught me that, what makes America great is our diversity. And once we teach that to our students, it and they start comprehending, diversity makes us great. This is what makes this country great. This is what makes the borough of the Bronx great. So it starts with letting our students and teachers know. And I agree with Assemblywoman Fernandez. Time to lift those lines and, let schools become more diverse, regardless of the neighborhood that they're from.
Thank you. All right, let's go to the next question. The first respondent will go back to the top, and that will be Councilmember Cabrera. Let's talk about special education. There are two special education issues that the parents asked us to raise in this question. The New York City Department of Ed has a long, sad history of special ed complaints, with an estimated 11,000 filed in the last school year alone. Hard to imagine. On average, these cases take almost a year to resolve, well beyond the 75-day legal limit. So number one, how do we improve the special education appeals process to ensure that mandated services and supports are provided to special needs students? And the second part that you were asked to address, maybe you can split answers in 30 and 30, is about buses for special education children. The communication with parents has been dreadful. They're not on time, and there are other bus issues too. Special education in the Bronx is so important. How can we straighten it out?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's for you, Councilman. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. First, let me just say, this has been a priority during the last 11 years of service. A council member, I provided funding to the SHIELD program that service not just my district, but literally the entire Bronx. Over $2 million I have allocated towards them. Look, 75%, let me just say that again, 75% of our students who have IEPs right now did not get the full services. That is shocking. On top of that, we are the Board of Ed right now does not have the capacity to handle all the specialized cases, and this is why you go through this appeal process, and they're so hesitant to be able to provide the funding for those students to be able to go to another private specialized school where they're not getting those services. We also, look, our city does not treat well kids with autism. We don't even have a park. Right now I have a committee. We're working on having a park to help with kids with autism. I wish I had more time. And I'll close with that. Thank you, Gary. I want to respect the time.
Time is of the essence. There's no question of it. There's not much we can do about it. We certainly believe in a balanced forum, and you've been around long enough to know that. Let's give Assemblymember Fernandez the same 1 minute, 60-second opportunity to respond.
1 minute and 60 seconds? No, kidding.
I was just doing 1 minute equals 60 seconds. There you go. Go ahead.
Gotcha. Well, yes, this is a really critical issue. A process that's supposed to be 75 days on average is taking 260 days to go through. So as I mentioned, we know we're going to get the money. We are going to have funding. We need to be hiring more hearing officers and more judges to help streamline these cases and really get to the root of the problem quicker and address them quicker, because it's our children that are suffering and also our parents that are having to deal with the balance of getting these things done. But we need to expand D75 services and schools in school districts. Not every school district has a D75 school, and many times parents and children are traveling long distances, extended time just to get to school. And adapting to the needs of our diverse community with these needs, we need to make sure that, and looking at playgrounds, public playgrounds that are near schools, to be compliant with the students that might have special needs. But the support needs to be there. Our parents need to feel supported. They need the help too. We need our specialists in our schools to guide them and to make sure that the issues are being addressed sooner than later, so no student is left behind, especially our special needs students.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Council Member Gibson, 60 seconds. Let's be clear.
Got it.
Go ahead.
I absolutely agree that we have to look at reforming the appeals process. We have to obviously look internally at staffing, but we also have to look at ways to reduce the bureaucracy and red tape. All of the paperwork that is required of many parents that are even filing these complaints. I think we should look at providing support. Many of our advocacy groups help these families when they file complaints for their special education students and D75 students. I think we have to look at providing them with more services, giving our advocates more money. The Office of Pupil Transportation needs to be reformed. We have to look at the eligibility and
30
guidelines
seconds.
and metrics that they have in place, because many families are denied access. We have to look at bus routes and improving service and basic necessities. We spend a lot of money on CARTA cases every year of families that sue the department for services, and we shouldn't do that every year. We have to look
15
intimately
seconds.
at the staffing, at the process, and really find ways to increase efficiency and reduce all that red tape that parents have to go through and endure.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Ravello, you get to respond to this about special education, the thorny issue of special ed being properly treated by our school system. Again, you got to unmute there, sir.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I think we're going to all agree on this. The staffing levels. What I would do is I would create a task force, ask the Department of Education to create a task force to catch up. It would be a temporary task force. We should be able to find the money and catch up to all these cases, and then restructure the way we do the complaints process. I think that would be the best way in order to get from underneath this lag of 11,000 complaints. And then two, I think the answer to your second question, the bus routes, yeah, I would, again, sit down, create a plan with the Department of Education, with the United Federation of Teachers, and let's figure out, because if what Councilman Cabrera said, the money is there, it's not being used, then let's investigate.
15.
Why is it not being used? Because we can't just provide the money disappears and nobody, and then we just forget about it. I think there's got to be some accountability. So that's one of the things that I would fight for.
Senator Sepulveda, question
Yeah,
of
so
special ed.
my experience talking to people in the community, someone in the chat put in one of the ideas that we want to incorporate. That's to put more D75 schools in our public schools, increase the numbers. But more importantly, look, I have two family members that are autistic children, and I know the difficulties that they face. And so I propose legislation that I think can cure 90% of the problems that we have with the appeals process. And that is to provide free legal services to every family that's having difficulty navigating the system to get the services they need based on their IEPs. If you do that,
30
you
seconds.
remedy 90% of the problem. A lot of the times it's really about navigating. It's really about making sure that those that are either don't speak the English language to the point where they can challenge the system. If you provide them with these legal services, they can be much more successful, cut down the appeals time, and make sure that the children get the services that they need. Regarding the bus company, we had a problem in our district. We identified a problem, and we worked in a monumental program in our district that solved many of the problems of busing children that are disabled. And that's the kind of program I'm going to bring to the Bronx to show the success.
Thank you very much. Let's move to the next question. Assemblymember Fernandez, you'll get the first response to this. With the Bronx mired at number 62 in the state in health outcomes, there has been an ongoing movement in Bronx communities toward food sustainability and its relation to general health, including a collaboration with the Bronx Executive Superintendent's Office. Also, some schools in the Bronx are exploring urban agriculture by participating in programs like FISH, which is Food Innovation, Sustainability, and Health. Can these agricultural hubs be established in elementary, middle, and high schools all over the Bronx in partnership with Bronx community-based organizations and, of course, including the City and State University of New York? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely, they should be. That is something we need to incorporate into our curriculum, that we can be sustainable, we can be farmers locally. Urban farming is something very real, as our good friend Stephen Ritz has shown with the Bronx Green Machine, that we can grow in our schools, in our backyards, in our communities, and feed each other. And at the same time, learning about the benefits of good quality health and access to health. So on top of making sure that our school meals are at top quality, healthy meals, hitting every area, and I don't even know if it's a triangle anymore, but of the food grid, but we need to work with our community and even the parks department, because some schools may not have the space for community gardens. Yes, some can do green rooftops, some have a space in the playground. If not, we need to work with our community and finding space right outside the school, maybe within our public parks, to make sure that we can teach our children this alternative to health and something that will help overall the community be more sustainable.
Councilmember Gibson, I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard about the issue of food sustainability.
Absolutely not. And I'm really proud of the Highbridge community. We opened up the Highbridge Green Middle School, which is a school in Highbridge and Community School District 9 that has a green roof. And we're very proud of that work. I think we need to look at developing food hubs and food councils, working with many of our worker cooperatives and having more partnerships with our local schools. We have a campus pantry program where we give out campus pantry food as well as toiletries. In many of our schools, we should expand on that. Farming and agriculture is absolutely important, and we need to make sure we have
30 seconds.
universal breakfast and universal lunch, and building out health and wellness centers like we have at CS 55 with Louis Torres and Green Bronx Machine in School District 9. We also need to look at scratch kitchens because many of our kitchens have processed food
15.
that's not good for us, and redesigning our cafeterias. We want beautiful cafes that will bring vibrancy to our cafeterias for our students.
Thank you very much. And let's move on to you, Mr. Ravello.
Well, yes, it seems like it was yesterday when Michelle Obama started teaching us about this issue and about our kids eating healthy. Yes, the Bronx has been 62 out of 62 in health outcomes, and it has been like that way for 10 years, and it hasn't changed. I believe that green roofs, we're already far behind in this issue. So the short answer is yes, I am for all our schools to incorporate some type of agriculture, in partnership with our CBOs into our schools. So yes.
Thank you very much. Senator Sepulveda, that's for you.
Thank you, Gary. As most people know, I am a diehard vegan, and I understand certainly the significance of eating healthy food, the impact it has not only on your physicalness, but also on your ability to retain information, on your ability to get an education. All these issues are important for our kids. So we have to make sure that our kids get the best nutrition possible. Now, look, we have worked with our local community gardens to bring children into it so they can learn about agriculture. Many people don't know this, but the Botanical Garden also has a robust program, at least they did before COVID, where they work with many of the local schools to bring children to the garden to teach them about agriculture. I'm also working on developing a program to bring children from the Bronx, from our elementary and junior high schools up north, where we have actual gardens, so they can see the importance of food production, of harvesting,
15 seconds.
And they can certainly equate themselves more with the issue of healthy eating. It's something that's a necessity. We can do it in our schools. We can do it in many other centers, in our public centers, because teaching kids about proper eating and providing them a forum to grow vegetables is critically important.
Thank you. Councilmember Cabrera, you get the final word on this particular question.
Thank you so much. Anyone who's been following these forums, I've been pushing for a wellness coordinator to be in every single one of our schools to educate our kids, to mentor them in the eating lifestyle. I'm the other vegan candidate here as well. It's something that is really important to me. As a matter of fact, myself and Borough President Eric Adams, we worked on the resolution of ban the bologna and the New York City Council, and actually resulted in causing the administration to remove all processed meats out of the meals that are being served to our children. We also in the council pushed for Meatless Monday. What we serve our children is the key to their health. And I also invested tens of thousands of dollars for our schools to have a hydroponic systems in the school so the kids could experience firsthand what it is to grow their own vertical farms.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move it right along to Councilmember Gibson. Did we miss something? No,
it's 5 o'clock.
Let's go to Councilmember Gibson and talk about vocational training. Over the past 2 decades, schools that provide vocational and technical training have been systematically removed as options for students in the Bronx. Yet, these are excellent practical educational opportunities that can lead directly to sustainable employment. What will you do as Borough President to help provide our middle and high school students with better access to career and technical educational opportunities? And can these programs be extended to benefit the community at large as well, who can significantly benefit from them?
Absolutely. CTE programs and getting back to our trade schools and vocational programs is an important part of our work, and we will continue that as borough president. We have to develop partnerships with our labor unions so that we have guaranteed opportunities for union jobs. With all of the construction we're seeing across the Bronx, we have to have apprenticeship programs. I'm very proud to fund a program called P2A, Pathways to Apprenticeship. And we're working with CUNY, we're working with many of our high schools so that there is a pathway to the middle class. These are trades that develop good jobs that build careers. The laborer, the lather, the sand hog, the operating engineer, the carpenter, the electrician. We're working very closely with non-traditional employment for women because we also know we need to have more women in construction. Schools like Alfred E. Smith and many others, we have to reinstitute many of those CTE programs because it really does make a difference. We realize not everyone is on a path to college, but they can be on a pathway to careers.
Thank you. Mr. Ravello, make sure you're on mute.
Yes, this is one of my biggest issues. Advocate to create work education stations near public housing. There's nearly 200 public housing developments in the Bronx. It is important that we first reach out to the kids that are currently struggling. That means the kids in public housing and kids in shelters. We need to show them that there are legitimate, sustainable careers out there. We remove the stigma behind vocational and technical training as jobs meant for people with lower education and replace it with the attitude that they are opportunities for people to build themselves back up.
30 seconds.
Once again, we start helping those who most need it. This begins to feed back into our community, into our economy, and that grows the benefit of the community at large.
Thank you. Senator Sepulveda, let's talk about vocational training.
Sure, absolutely. I'm also proud to have funded programs that impact the CTE program and apprenticeships. I've worked closely with labor, with unions, construction trade unions, to increase diversity amongst the ranks. It's unfortunate that you still don't have the level of diversity within our construction trades that you should have. And one of the things that I would require for developments here in the Bronx is that these trades have a mandatory percentage of students in the trades in our schools that are participating to become full trade members, become construction workers, plumbers, electricians. These are jobs that take you to the middle class, sometimes exceed the middle class, but they should be available as an option for those students who do not believe that college is the best path for them. And so we have ways of doing it. We have an enormous amount of construction that's happening in our borough. To make sure that these companies that are making a ton of money developing our county, that are the construction unions, that by and large don't have many residents living here, live in Jersey and Long Island, obligate them to hire our students that are participating in our programs. Thank you, Gary. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Councilmember. Everybody's got a lot to say. That's a good sign. Councilmember Cabrera.
Thank you so much, Gary. Look, I remember when Bloomberg literally shut down all this vocational school. That's where it started. We're going to need leadership in this next administration, and also to use the bully pulpit of the borough president to be able to get this vocational school started and to be, and here's the operative word, intentional. Kids, students tend to think and they have a cultural next step. So having this vocational school and having an articulation, for example, where Bronx Community College, with the awesome, amazing mechanic program they have there, is the best one literally in the entire state of New York. So kids could know the path, and it's a clear path that they could
15
take.
seconds. Okay, thank you. Assembly member, we have representatives from all levels of government here, so I got to keep track. Assembly member Natalia Fernandez, it's for you.
Thanks, Gary. Yes, we absolutely need to expand these programs, and if not build a school, because like I said, we need new schools. We should have one school dedicated to these type of programs that students can start looking towards and being a part of in their later high school years when they are getting ready to enter the real world. Because as was mentioned, not every student may go to college. Not every student is meant to be a rocket scientist. And we need to set that opportunity, that foundation of these types of trainings for the trades so they can be a part of the growth and development of this borough that we know it will continue to grow and develop. But those programs can start in our schools. So with the space available and, pilot programs to begin with, we need to work with our labor unions, every trade union, to make sure that they can start providing the training in our schools. So students
15
get it right
seconds.
there, and then extend the hours of school. So even the community can benefit from these training programs when school hours are closed. But CTE programs is something that we absolutely need to look towards to give further opportunities
Time.
for Bronxites and young people to prosper.
Thank you. All right, let's move to the next question. And I guess our rotation means that Mr. Ravello will get the first chance to answer it. School co-locations, mergers, and closures are very problematic in the Bronx, partly because the timelines for changes in school utilization happen on compressed timelines with little or no input from parents until after a change has been approved by the Panel for Educational Policy. As a result, school communities are left to develop plans on their own without community input. Can you commit to making sure that any of your appointees on the PEP and the CECs are more aligned with the parents that they represent so that their voice and governance can have real meaning? Mr. Ravello? I think we're back up to having you unmute. We got to put a big sign there that says unmute. Go ahead, Mr. Ravello.
The answer is a big yes. I will commit to make sure my appointees will understand the needs of their community and to ensure transparency and agency of the accountability to the parents of the Bronx. I will hold a meeting or town hall meeting before these changes are approved by the PEP so that the word can get out. It's about information. So once the word is out, and the parents know and understand what the decisions are made, then the parents, they'll be able to take the appropriate action. The more they know, the more information gets to them, the more they're going to feel that their voices were heard.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to add a word in. One of the things that defines the role of the borough president is appointees. And in situations like this, to appoint for the PEP or on the CECs, of course, community boards as well, really helps determine how well a borough president does. So I will add that along to the question and just bring in Senator Sepulveda to give a response.
I mean, that's an easy one, Gary. Absolutely. You cannot have any major reform or improvement in our educational system unless you have parental involvement. And I would take it one step further, that I would block every attempt to co-locate unless you have a vote by the parents, the CEC, the people that are most impacted by co-locations. I'm going to be the borough president that will hopefully make my mark on education. And again, you need the parents to be involved in that. Co-location has created many, many problems for many of our students and many of our parents. And in order for you to effectuate that, you have to use the power that you have in appointments and the bully pulpit to make sure that the voices of our parents are taken first into consideration before any such co-location or any major policy agenda that has to do with education goes into effect. You have to have the parents agree, parents say so. And you have some of that with the CEC, but you have to have direct community involvement in order to get approval from my office.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Cabrera.
Thank you so much. And the answer to the question is absolutely. Here, what we in desperate need is of structure that is in place, that is clarity. There's certain level of expectations to the appointees from the borough president. As the next borough president, my expectation is going to be for my appointees to be able to meet on a consistent basis with the parents, and for those appointees to have had children in the borough of ed or to have children. So, we need someone that really understand and that has been in those shoes or going through those shoes of what it is to be a parent that has a child in the Board of Education. And so unless we put into structure and a system in place, then we're leaving it to chance. And we're not, as the next borough president, we're not going to leave this type of decisions making to chance.
Thank you. Councilmember Gibson. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I skipped a letter. Natalia Fernandez, Assembly Member, please.
Thank you. Yes, we need to make sure our appointees are dedicated parents, which we have so many of, that really reflect the interests of the parents within each school district. And we need to build the bridges between outside of the school community and the community. And that's something that we can start with our community boards. As borough president, we do have a role in appointing and overseeing community board operations, and bringing those conversations to the table sooner at the beginning of the process is something that we can do to build more transparency and bring everyone involved aware of the projects to come, and make sure that the parental choice, the parental vote, is what is inspiring our final decision.
Thank you very much. I guess now, Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you, Gary. Absolutely. As borough president, I will make sure that any appointee to the CEC or the PEP or any other advisory board has dedicated, hardworking parents and leaders and advocates themselves who know the system and have a lot of ideas on how we can achieve the solutions we need. I've been a part of far too many school closures and mergers. I have several co-locations, several campuses. I was a part of the renewal process to serve schools when 145 closed on Teller Avenue. We fought against all of that. But I think when any proposal comes forth from the district, from the borough, we have to organize and engage parents at the onset and not be reactionary after the fact. Because once these proposals come out, there is a time frame. And yes, we can pull items off the agenda just to buy us more time. But I think we have to engage parents in a real transparent way on the ground to make sure that they are really engaged at the onset and have conversations about the future of their children's school for the benefit of the children and families in that particular district.
Thank you. That was the final response to that particular question. Let's move on. And the first respondent to this question will be Senator Sepulveda. Senator, let's talk about curriculums. There is extensive data that programs like music and art keep children in school, keep them engaged and focused, and improve their SAT scores. It also lowers crime, especially youth crimes. These are important staple programs that have been cut for thousands of Bronx children. Will you advocate for the revision of curriculums to include music and arts programs to keep crime down and help children achieve in schools? Is this something you'd support? And if so, as borough president, how would you do it?
It's something that I strongly support. I'm myself an amateur guitarist, but I have seen firsthand how music and art can really improve the education of our children. My own young son, who was once misdiagnosed as being autistic, when we put him in a music program, he became a part of a gifted and talented program. And I've seen other children that. So we must provide art and music and culture to our children to make them more diverse. All of the data, as you've indicated, Gary, indicates that when you provide these kinds of services to our children, when you provide music and art and other things that improve in terms of cultural awareness, it's an improvement that you see academically. Math scores are better. History scores are better. I mean, when you talk about music and art, it is something that I will be providing in terms of funding as much money as I could, working with my colleagues in government. You know, I am the most prolific legislator that's running for this position. And that's because I've worked with many of my colleagues to pass laws. I will be up in Albany pushing for these kinds of funding for art and music. When the budget comes, I will live in Albany to make sure that we provide the kind of monies we need for this for our kids.
Councilmember Cabrera.
Thank you so much, Gary. I have a long history of providing funding to this type of programs. As a matter of fact, I have music program where kids they're part of an orchestra right here in the Bronx. In my district, they're playing violin, viola, cello. We have a fun chess classes and sponsored championship. As a matter of fact, all the kids in the city are involved in that championship. And Kids Bay Boys and Girls Club, a state-of-the-art music studio. Same thing with the BRAG program. I provided funding for that. Cooking classes, the New York Junior Tennis League that I have right here in my district, where I provided funding to fix the tennis courts. They're there. And as a matter of fact, for those who are interested, they can sign up your children. But look, one of the things that we need to do as a borough president, I'm going to do, is to reach out to this big corporation and want to do business here to provide funding like we did at Kids Bay with the Yankees having a brand new studio.
Thank you. Assemblymember Fernandez.
I'm such a big fan of music and the arts and theater in our schools, and it is absolutely every student's right to get that opportunity in their education. And in Albany as well, I've been very happy and proud to support programs like Education Through Music, which gives the funding and resources and instruments for children to have band practice in schools. But it shouldn't be something that we continually fight for. Maybe some schools get it and maybe some schools don't. This needs to be part of our curriculums that is embedded in our schools, making sure we have music studios and enough art
30
supplies.
seconds.
And in my time as the assembly member, I've had to outsource art supplies for schools in my community because I knew it's that important. And every student deserves that opportunity to be inspired in themselves and excel in a skill that maybe they didn't know they had until they picked up that instrument in their schools, in their public school. So this is absolute priority.
15.
I want to see children use their talents, flourish in their talents, and share it if they ever want to with the community.
Thank you. Then we will go to Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you, Gary. Well, I think arts and music are critical components of our students' learning. They are necessities, and everyone should have at least an art teacher, a music studio, and an art studio in every single school with critical after-school programs. I have been very honored as a council member to support great organizations like Renaissance Youth Center and Bronx River Arts Center and Chesson Schools and Bronx Arts Ensemble, the Carrie Lead Center at Crotona Park. We have a CASA and Su-CASA grant where we fund organizations to provide in-school and after-school learning. I am working with CS55 and have funded the full construction of a music studio at CS55 with Windows of Hip Hop. And we also have arts as a catalyst for change at the Bronx Museum of the Arts. We need to make sure we have
15.
certified art and music teachers, and we also have the latest technology in our schools when it comes to capital renovations of our music studios and art studios.
Thank you. Mr. Ravello, you get the final word on this question.
Yes, and I am muted.
Okay, we can tell.
Well, I find that art and music to have been very important in my son's life and development. I'm sure they both are not the same without them. That being said, in certain parts of the world, it is deemed that art and music are necessary for a necessary part of our education. So I would like to reach out to nonprofit organizations across the city who want to help kids with their creative side. I'll advocate for the government to subsidize these programs and bring them to the public school across the borough. These kids off the school gives them a new outlet and helps the children interact with each other in a challenging way that's important for their brain development.
Thank you. For our next question, the first respondent will be you, Councilmember Cabrera. Let's talk about infrastructure. To put it bluntly, class sizes are too big, especially now when children need as much individual academic and emotional care as possible. There are existing abandoned buildings that can be converted to school space, and also, of course, a great desire in many Bronx communities for new school facilities that simply never get built. Also, there's a great need for repairing, updating, and modernizing the existing ones with new furniture, Wi-Fi capacity, electrical capacity, AC and ventilation improvements, which are especially needed in this current climate. If you are the borough president, how would you address these, and can community boards be useful in this process?
You know, absolutely. Myself and Councilmember Gibson, we worked together in Jerome rezoning. Each of us were able to negotiate a brand new middle school for our district. And top of that, I have been able to bring over $170 million to my district, unprecedented in my district, to be able to bring funding to fix school auditoriums, bathrooms, music school, to convert schools to be STEM schools, building a brand new gymnasium to 247, over $10 million. I was able to negotiate that as well. And to be able to have gymnasiums, opening a complete gymnasiums in our district, that and in that particular
15
school,
seconds.
that they never had a gymnasium in the history in that school. This is something that is very dear to me. I have the track record, and I'm going to be, as the educational borough president, bring on unprecedented amount of capital to the borough.
Assemblymember Fernandez.
Yes, well, I mentioned it before that we need new schools. Our classrooms are too overcrowded and there's really just no more space. And as we continue to develop this borough, understanding that we are going to be building new affordable housing and things like that, we need to really assess what the community needs. So while we are going to build a new units, 900, a new building, 900 units, we need to have community impact studies. And that's something I'm going to propose within the Euler process and any new development to come to see what we need to help the community continue to survive and thrive. That means additional schools and looking at food deserts and providing those amenities. But we need to build more schools. We need to retrofit schools because in some schools, like in my district, where the Bronx High School Visual Arts is in the building that used to be a chocolate factory, they don't have a gym.
15
So I've worked with them in the past to now start construction. Hopefully this year, COVID pushed it back, to extend and get a gymnasium in there because every school should have those amenities, a gym, an auditorium, cafeterias, and space for spacious classrooms.
Time, right on time. Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you, Gary. Great question. So a lot of our school buildings are aging and the infrastructure is significantly old. We have a $750 million capital plan by School Construction Authority to make sure that we have school accessibility. A lot of our aging buildings have no elevators. They have no way for students with disabilities and D75 students to get around, and it's unacceptable. I too have been very, very supportive of many of our schools in District 9, millions of dollars of money to renovate the auditoriums, the cafeteria, the playgrounds, gymnasiums, HVACs, dance studios, science labs, and community boards can be useful. Every year they come to us with all of their priorities on capital infrastructure in our schools. We have to modernize these buildings and we have to get rid of these portable classrooms. They're called TCUs. We have to get rid of those in some of these mini buildings that we cannot renovate. We have to make sure we have the latest up-to-date technology and schools that are in the 21st century, because that's what our students need. Not what they want, but what they need.
Thank you very much. I understand that a candidate, Victor Gutierrez, is logging in. We'll give him a chance to catch his breath, but we will move on with this question to you, Mr. Ravello.
Yes. Well, this is what's happening, folks. We're in the 21st year of the 21st century. And what we have are buildings that were built in the early and mid 20th century. So our students are already lagging behind just by walking into the infrastructures that they walk into. That has been unacceptable. And some of the folks here are walking out of office, but nothing has been done. And I've been talking about this as the only one to graduate from public schools in New York. We have to change this. And I've been saying it for the last 20 years. I will fight hard to keep pushing improvement and provide pressure, the bullet pulpit of the Bronx Borough President, to make sure that these projects are not just promised, the 780 million, but they actually are followed through. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Sepulveda.
Thank you, Gary. The councilman indicated that he's dedicated $17 million to schools in the district. Well, since I've been elected in this district, I've dedicated well over $100 million to our schools. And now with the work that we're doing in the Senate and the legislature, we're going to get about additional $1.4 billion in foundation aid for our schools. We all get discretionary monies, and I can tell you that I have dedicated over 75% of my discretionary monies to help infrastructure in our schools. And that's several $1 million to build things like gyms, air conditioning in our classrooms, to build auditoriums. That's where I put most of my discretionary funding, and I continue to do so. But, we have to work with the School Construction Authority, with the City Council and the Mayor's Office so that we can identify cost efficiencies and targeted initiatives to bolster the quality of our new school buildings. Look, we helped build a new school, a middle school in my district, and I want to build another 30 of them if I can. But certainly it's about funding. It's about the issue of segregation and poverty that has led to what we have with our schools and the poor quality.
Thank you. Before we begin the next question, let us formally welcome a self-proclaimed man of the Bronx. He calls himself a fisherman of the Bronx who wears many hats with many skills. So, Mr. Gutierrez, nice to have you with us. We're happy that you have joined us. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question. We're doing them in alphabetical order. I think you will be third in answering this next question, but we do appreciate that you've joined us this evening. Thank you. All right, so for our next question, it will be for you, Assemblymember Fernandez. There are tremendous disparities in access to gifted and talented programs, as well as admission to the city's specialized high schools. What can you do to make higher level educational opportunities available in grade schools? And do you support elimination of the SHSAT and the one test process? And if so, what criteria should be used to select students for these specialized schools? That's for you, Assemblymember Fernandez.
Thank you. The Gifted and Talented program should be available in every school. We need to give the opportunities for our students to excel in their talents. And the SHSAT, the SHSAT, I think it should be removed because historically it is a racist test and it was put in to help further prevent students, Black and brown students, from getting into these great schools. And that could be something that we all Google. But I think that the test ultimately should be a myriad of different requirements. So high school scores, extracurricular activities, letters of recommendations, special projects, the interview process. These are things that we need to look at when we consider our kids for their next step in their educational career, and not one test that many students don't have the ability or access to get the proper studying and training to take.
Thank you. Councilmember Gibson, let's talk about gifted and talented and specialized high schools.
Great, thank you. So I agree we need to get rid of the specialized high school exam. I think we need to look at other components of a student's well-roundedness in terms of community service, their volunteer work, their grades, character letters, anything they've done in their community, because many of us were not good test takers ourselves. And I don't think one test should dictate your ability to get into specialized high schools. Gifted and talented programs, we have many, but not enough. There were talks about expanding them in our school district and it didn't happen. We need to have more recruitment for parents and giving them support and holding more events and informationals and webinars with our CECs and PTAs on what gifted and talented programs are, because I feel like many parents are not aware of it and they may not, necessarily know the importance of a gifted and talented program. So I think education, outreach, access, opportunity, and working with many of our advocates and parent leaders on the ground on promoting more gifted and talented, and really look at streamlining the process to get into our GNT schools.
Thank you very much. Let's go to you for your first opportunity to speak with us. It is Mr. Gutierrez. Nice to have you with us, sir. Do we have Mr. Gutierrez?
I think his connection is going in and out, so we'll just wait for like a few minutes.
Well, we're not going to wait a few minutes. We'll give him a couple of seconds and we'll move on. And if he comes back, we'll be happy to have him.
Okay.
So now let's go to Mr. Ravello. And Mr. Gutierrez, if you get your connection back, you let us know. Mr. Ravello, this question for you.
Well, certain standardized tests are necessary for certain specialized schools, but the SHSAT simply tests a kid on how well he can do. He can take a test versus how smart they really are. That criteria, and I agree with Assemblywoman Fernandez, is extracurriculars, supplemental essays, recommendations, and interview process. I think those are better ways to deal with that situation.
Thank you, Senator Sepulveda.
Thank you, Gary, because this is right up something that I've been stressing throughout this debate, and that is the fact that our schools are the most segregated schools in the state of New York, which is sad because we're supposed to be a liberal progressive society. But the reality is that the SHSAT exam was we have to repeal Heck Calandra, which took away our ability to be able to manage and deal with educational things like a specialized high school exam. Heck Calandra was the byproduct of a racist resistance to segregation in our schools going back to 1964 and 1971 when Heck Calandra was passed. We need to get rid of it. We need to repeal Heck Calandra. And then we have to have certain criteria for kids to get into our specialized schools. Some of them my colleagues have already spoken about: community involvement, grades, but we also have to build more specialized schools. Having
seconds.
3 is insufficient. We should have more so we can cater to more students. And we should certainly invest in those programs that allow students to prepare for these exams. Because you look at certain segments of students in our society who are doing very well getting in, we can provide the funding so our kids can get prepared for these exams. But get rid of the test.
Fernando Cabrera, sir.
Thank you so much. I just want to make a point of clarification for my colleague, Senator. It wasn't 17 million, it was 170 millions that I brought to my district. I know it was not intentional of you to misrepresent the number, but I just wanted to clarify that. Look, at the end of the day, whatever system and criteria we come with, we need to come up with a system that is not filled with corruption, because then you're going to have elected officials, you're going to have people of influence trying to get their kids in where they don't deserve to get it in. Second of all, we need to better prepare our children to get into this specialized schools like I have my district, where I provided funding for them to do so. And now they're getting into this specialized school. And I agree with my colleague, Senator. We need more specialized schools because right now it just very few spots where so many kids that are literally qualified to get into the schools.
Thank you. Let's move to the next question. Councilmember Gibson, you'll get the first chance to respond to this. This is about school sports. An estimated 17,000 Black and Latino students across the city are without the opportunity to play PSAL sports, largely because the small schools movement has shut them out. In fact, the Fair Play movement started in the Bronx at the Urban Assembly Academy here in the Bronx. How do we literally and figuratively level the playing field and give every student the opportunity to play school athletics?
Thank you, Gary. I remember the Fair Play campaign and very supportive of it. PSAL programs need to be available in all of our school districts, not just in some. And certainly for us in the Bronx, these are necessities and not amenities. When you talk about sports, when you talk about Little League, baseball programs, soccer programs, I'm a huge fan of lacrosse programs and handball, which is called wall ball, and karate. We've been able to fund a lot of those organizations, including Chess in Schools, because these are great partners that do a lot of great work. But they need support. They need more resources to expand on their population and serve more than just several schools. And there is a strong momentum to make sure that these are guaranteed, because it is a part of the fundamental learning for our students. So I would be very supportive of more PSAL and working with our CBOs to make sure that they get more money in the budgets, and really making sure that we formalize more of those partnerships with our parents so that we have diversity across all of our sports programs.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Gutierrez is back on. Mr. Gutierrez, can you, are you with us? Can you respond to that question?
Mr. Gutierrez, are you on?
I think he's muted there. Is he muted?
Yes, he's muted.
He's got to unmute himself. If not, we'll have to move on. I mean, all right, well, let's move on and move to, let's see, I guess he was the last one to respond to this question.
All right, here we go.
There we got him. Okay, go ahead.
There you go. There we go.
Okay, you got 60 seconds, sir.
Okay, Gary, I want to thank everyone there. Muchas gracias a todo el mundo, because we got a bilingual constituency. So with the Bronx, with diversity, estamos bilingual. Pero Gary, I got to do some quick house cleaning. You know that in Georgia, they had the voter democratic suppression. They're trying to do voter democratic voice suppression in the Bronx by trying to keep me off the ballot, the Board of Elections. None of these candidates never challenged my petition or anything else, but some crony from the corrupt Bronx political machine is trying to keep the voters from choosing me as a candidate. But that's not going to happen.
Okay,
well, Gary?
Okay, that's good to know. Do you want to take...
Let's get out to education. All right, what was the question you wanted me in 5 seconds?
We were talking about the availability of school sports for all students.
Well, availability of schools, the first thing that we got to do now, like I said, we got to deal with the the undocumented, the LGBT kids, every type of education. Not like other candidates that want another job, but we got to deal with all the kids down. And of course, we're going to eliminate all schools in there and create brand new schools, COVID friendly. Since we're having a new thing with Pete Buttigieg, and hopefully the bill goes through in Congress, where we can now do all of the infrastructure turn and get schools for the kids.
Thank you very much. All right, I think we're kind of lost track here because we got out of order. I think the next question, did everybody get to answer that question? Did I miss somebody? Okay, good. So let's move on to the next question. I'm just
Actually,
checking.
Gary, I think a couple of us didn't get to answer.
You didn't get to answer it. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
I think the senator and myself. The senator,
all right, then let's do it.
I didn't get to answer that question either.
All right, I got all messed up there. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
why don't you ask the question again, Gary? Because I think I may have answered it.
All right, I am so sorry. But, I was keeping very good track of my order and it got kind of
Tammy is next.
around.
What was the question, just to be sure?
We're going to start it again. An estimated 17,000 Black and Latino students across the city are without the opportunity to play PSAL sports, largely because the small schools movement has shut them out. In fact, the fair play movement started in the Bronx at the Urban Assembly Academy. How do we literally and figuratively level the playing field and give every student the opportunity to play school athletics? So then I guess I'll capture my order again, and it is Mr. Ravello.
Okay, I was a little league coach for 14 years. I coached my sons, and then I just kept the passion of, I brought after school program. I had my police officers in the 46th precinct. We created an after school program where we had kids come out and play football. I got to give credit to Officer Fio, now Sergeant Fio, who created that program. In the 41st precinct, when I was there, we created an after school program for kids to come out and play and actually create a travel ball. So I'm actually very big on sports. There continues to be I like to incorporate nonprofit organizations, and I've said it, especially our kids in the Grand Concourse corridor. They don't have access to a lot of parks because there's a lot of development there. I would, as Bronx Borough President, I'd like to see how we can start helping them and the schools, obviously, participate more in schools programs. So I'm actually a big proponent of school play.
Thank you very much, Senator Sepulveda.
Yeah, same here, Gary. One of the first experiences I had in team building was in places like the PSAL and participating in sports in schools. And I also, like the Assembly Councilwoman indicated, participated in the Fair Play program. Now, to me, it's equally as important as getting music, getting theater, getting arts in our schools. Our children should have access to academic and athletic programs, just like any other school. And if you look at higher income schools, you don't have these issues with access to PSAL and programs like this. Again, we in the Bronx get short shifted, and that's because we don't get the funding. And as the borough president, I will make sure that we get as much money as possible to fund these kinds of programs. Work with some of the teams that we have here. We have the New York Yankees. We have, the New York Knicks, to see if we can participate the way private and public endeavor to bring in more scholastic athletic programs into our schools. Our kids need that. I've worked over the years to increase, for example, gym hours, to increase through my funding, my discretionary funding, to build more gyms so that our kids can have places to participate in athletics. It's a vital necessity and part of our school structure.
Thank you. Assemblymember Fernandez.
It is a very vital part of our school structure. Children need the ability to exercise their athletic abilities. And some schools don't even have fields to do that. So partnerships is something I'm going to work into building with other schools so certain schools can utilize the field, because we all need a field to play these things. But also expanding the partnerships to even our universities that do have the space, that do have the fields. We may need to take some of that space and utilize and work a schedule so we can bring sports to our kids. but it's critically important that we keep sports in our schools, that we fight for sports in our schools. And I will do that on every level of government that I need to make sure that we have the funding to do that, to have our schools equipped with the sports equipment.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're going to do one more question.
Gary, I didn't get to answer the question.
Oh, I didn't get you? Oh, my goodness gracious.
God.
I'm so sorry.
You're doing a great job. Thank you.
I'm
Gary.
trying my best. Go ahead, council member.
Thank you. I'll make it really short.
Well, you got a minute. You're entitled.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Look, I really want to come back to the heart of your question, because the question was really that a lot of our students, 17,000 of them, don't get to play in a PSAL sports. This is an equity issue. This is an accessibility problem that we're having. This is a right that all of our students should have. And so what we need to do temporarily, perhaps what at this point, is to have the smaller schools to be given the opportunity to partner with the larger schools, and to they're able to have accessibility to the fields where they're going to be able to practice and to play, or perhaps they don't have a critical mass of students to be able to create a whole team. They could play again with the larger schools.
Thank you very much. All right, this is going to be the final question. And then after that, we'll ask everybody to deliver a closing statement. And at least according to my current list, it would be first up for you, Mr. Gutierrez. If you are elected borough president, when you look back at your accomplishments, what do you think you'll be most proud of when it comes to Bronx education? Mr. Gutierrez?
Well, Gary, can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Well, Gary, the greatest thing that I have, that I'm going to get rid of these 5 pretenders in June, because if they can't write my vote in, they're going to put my name in and write it in. They're scared of me because they know I'm coming down, and I'll be there till November. But the whole thing is that the Bronx is changing, and I know you, Gary, you've been around there. I remember I did my first interview in 1997 with you, and we're about to shock the world. And all these pretenders that are running for office gotta go. 2 of them want a job, 2 of them, and then of course, the senator gotta answer his question in there. Don't talk about education when you turn yourself into the police. Stop that. Get out of town, brother. Come on now.
Thank you very much. Let's go to you, Mr. Ravello.
Okay, so when I leave, and I'm running for 4 years. I'm not running to get a job. I want 4 years. And after 4 years, what I would like people to know me as, I was the after school program Bronx Borough President, where we would have a robust after school program where that involved trade schools, kids learning how to the trades of the future, like building solar panels and working on electric cars, sports, culinary school, arts, music. That's what I want to be known as the Bronx Borough President that brought back to life the after school programs that we all need. That would keep our youth out of problem.
Thank you. Senator Sepulveda.
Thank you for the question, Gary. Throughout this whole process, several debates, I've challenged my colleagues on different issues. For example, when we talked about economic development, I said I challenged my colleagues that if we are no longer last in terms of employment, that I will not run for re-election. Not a single one of my opponents has agreed to that. When we talked about our healthcare metrics, I said if we're no longer 62 out of 62, I will not run for re-election. I've challenged my colleagues that are running, and not a single one of them has joined the challenge. I'm going to do the same thing here with education. I believe that our goal should be within the next 4 years or the next 5 years, depending on after the election, that our graduation rate has to be 80%. We have poverty, we have segregation, and you need someone who has the experience to work with these issues to increase our educational scores, our graduation rates. And I challenge my colleagues again to join me. If our graduation rate is not 80% in 5 years, and 4 years, I'm sorry, you will not run for re-election if you are elected. Let's see if any of them take the challenge.
Thank you very much, Senator. And Fernando Cabrera, for you, Councilman.
Thank you so much, Gary. Look, we're talking about graduation rates. I have a couple of high school. One of them has a 99% graduation rate. And we're talking about ESL students. who often come to my district well behind, and in many of my schools with 34% of the students living in shelter. We've done a phenomenal job. This is what I want to see across the borough, to see the graduation rates just increase exponentially, but our schools need the resources. So I want to be the educational borough president that is going to be able to give unprecedented amount of capital like I did in my district. I'll do it in the Bronx.
Thank you. Assemblymember Fernandez.
I want my legacy to be that I built the most schools in this borough. We do need more new schools. We need to fix our old schools. And I want to be the one to fix them and give our students that needed supportive environment to excel in their educational career. And to address the pledge that keeps being brought up, I don't need to go word for what you're saying on your pledge, because I've been honest in every aspect and every issue to say I will do absolutely everything to make sure that we are number one and no longer last in this borough in every capacity. And you can see and believe that because my website says so, unlike your website that doesn't say anything as to what you are promising to do for the borough. So how can we really trust that what you're saying now is what you will do when it is not documented? But I will empower the students of this borough by bringing them or giving them new schools, giving them further opportunities, fighting for funding for extra programs like the CTE programs and educational athletic opportunities and the core programs like music and arts.
Thank you very much. The final word on for the questions segment will go to Councilmember Vanessa Gibson.
Thank you, Gary. Keeping up with a lot of the work I've done as a council member, the capital investments I've made, the collaborations, all of the partnerships, working with students in temporary housing, addressing the digital divide, making sure that we have restorative justice programs and healing centers, and making sure that our students have access and opportunity, giving them the chances that they need to learn and grow and be success stories and not statistics. Breaking down the school to prison pipeline and giving our students a real chance at a future. I will continue all of that as the next Bronx Borough President and take it to an even larger level. The schools I've opened, the Highbridge Middle School, the Morris Heights Educational Campus, the new school we're getting at Edward L. Grant, building more schools as population grows, but quality with all of the necessities, not amenities that we need, and making sure that our students always have access and opportunity, and we're investing in them because education is the gateway to the future.
Thank you very much, candidates. I'm going to give you an applause because you know we've moderated many forums, and none of them have been 2 hours long, but you've stayed with it, and we appreciate their input. And I know the Bronx parents have now got an idea of who you are, and I hope you get an idea if one of you becomes the borough president, and you'll get an idea, number one, how passionate our parents are about education and about supporting their children, and also about how unified they are in saying, we want a voice, we want to participate. And that's why they ran this forum, and your participation is highly, highly valued. Just a reminder, the event was organized by Bronx Parent Leaders Advocacy Group in collaboration with all the Bronx CECs, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, the New Settlement Parent Action Committee, the African Democratic Club, STEMDUP Institute, and BronxNet Television. So let's go to our closing statements, and we'll do that, as we said at the beginning, in alphabetical order. And that will mean you first, Councilmember Cabrera.
Thank you, Gary, and all the advocates that put this forum together. I commend you and I thank you. Look, I'm looking forward to becoming the next borough president. I'm going to become the educational borough president. I have the track record. Looking forward for all of our schools to becoming community schools so they could have all the wraparound services that they need. Looking forward to all of our schools having 5-star after-school program and open new schools and all throughout the Bronx, articulating programs with our local colleges to be able to have the parental inclusion that is so necessary and so needed in the Bronx. I'm looking for your support. June 22nd, vote Fernando Cabrera. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember, and thank you again for participating in this very important program. Assemblymember Natalia Fernandez, your closing statement.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you to everybody that organized this really important discussion. And a special thank you to the parents that have not let up once, not only for your student, your child, but for all the children here in the Bronx, because our education is where success starts. And we need to make sure that we are helping in every single little way based on what we hear from you. We can't address something if we don't know it. And I depend on the voices of our parents to make sure that we are addressing the issues that our children are suffering and replacing the resources that have been taken from them. As your borough president, I will advocate tooth and nail on the biggest soapbox that I can find to make sure that those at the federal level and the Albany level and here in New York City know what our children need and what this borough needs to truly allow them to excel and reach their true prosperity. And I intend to work with you every single step of the way, bringing you and your voice to the table when we do have these discussions about our children's education, because above all, it is the key to our success, to their future, and we must empower them.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Council Member Gibson, your final statement.
Thank you so much, Gary, and thank you to all of our parents and advocates. Thank you for being great champions on behalf of your children and recognizing that you have so much to give and the contributions you are providing are significant. Our students are destined for success, and we have to do everything possible to give them everything that they rightfully deserve. And as a council member representing School District 9, I have dedicated all of my time to invest in our schools, to embark on partnerships that make a difference, to make sure that our kids have access and opportunity. I am not new to this work. I am true to this work. And education is truly the gateway to the future. We have to invest in resources and programs and collaborations that bring back everything that our children have lost. Our campaign is Forward Together Bronx, and we hope you will join with us because we have to move forward. COVID-19 has been a setback, but every setback is preparation for a comeback. Join us, and we look forward to working with all of you. And thank you so much, and keep up the good work. Stay empowered. God bless.
Thank you, Council Member. Mr. Gutierrez, Victor Gutierrez, your final statement. I think you need to unmute. There you go. Nope, it's still not working there, sir. Still needs to be unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Gary, and your great team. You got a great production team. I've known you since the early 90s, so I know that this team was going to always deliver for BronxNet and the people of the Bronx. And on June 22nd, we're going to eliminate 5 of these pretenders. But if they keep my name out of the voice, just write the name Victor Hugo Gutierrez, because they think you're stupid and you cannot write Victor Hugo Gutierrez. That's where they made the mistake. And I thank all the people because education is it. And the Biden administration will make it to the next level. Thank you. And God bless and pray for me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gutierrez. Mr. Ravello.
Well, I want to say thank you to Gary. Thank you, Bronx parents. Like you, I am a Bronx parent myself who put my kids through Bronx schools. So I understand you. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? That's the question. And the choice is clear in this election. You can continue with business as usual, or you can elect a leader that would lead from the front with a vision that together we can get things done. And I hope to be that choice. Gracias a todos los padres que asistieron a este foro. Es sumamente importante. La elección es clara en estas elecciones. Puede continuar con los negocios de costumbre o elegir un líder que liderará de frente y no de atrás. Yo espero ser esa opción para ustedes. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Señor Ravello. And the final word for this program will be delivered by Senator Sepulveda.
Thank you, Gary. And again, thank you to everyone who put this together and the parents. Look, somehow we have the largest public school system in the country, and we spend more per capita on our students than anyone else. Yet we still somehow manage to underperform, especially here in the Bronx. That has to stop. Education is part of a holistic approach to improve the lives of our children. We have the highest poverty rate. We have our graduation rates are about 12 to 13%. Our dropout rates. Hunts Point itself has about 18% dropout rate, and our kids are 2 times more likely to live in poverty. And that is one of the main reasons why we're not doing as well as we should. I'm going to be the borough president who will be known for changing the educational trajectory of this county. And again, I invite all my colleagues to take the challenge. if you're so confident about your plan and your program, then join me in saying that if at the end of your first term, you do not have an 80% graduation rate in this county, you will not run for re-election. Put your money where your mouth is.
15.
If you're confident in the efforts that you're going to do, like I am, then take the pledge. Let's do this together. That way, we can be held accountable in 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. So there we go. That is the end of our program. Thank you again, Fernando Cabrera, Natalia Fernandez, Vanessa Gibson, Victor Gutierrez, Sammy Ravello, and Louis Sepulveda. Good luck in the rest of the campaign. Thank you to all the people who put this together. We read the list of names at the beginning, and we appreciate all their dedication. I want to personally thank our timekeeper, Amy Tsai. She was so busy. Every minute, every 30 seconds, we got it all done.
Thank you, Amy.
There we go. And folks, I'll see you on BronxNet Television, on the Bronx Buzz and Bronx Talk. Please, everybody, stay safe. Love our children. Wear your mask, and let's all work together to build a better Bronx. Thank you so much, and good night, everybody.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Bye, Natalia. Bye, Vanessa.
Great job.
Bye,